In the wake of Lotus working a long work week, we discuss his work-life balance and how he's terrible at it. It was a little loud in my headset, so I turned it down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm down a little bit.
You come what?
No, I just wanted. Okay, I can hear myself.
You can hear yourself? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good morning, podcast listeners. This is Lotus
And Quid Carl.
with the Socratic Neighbors podcast, the podcast that tries to get you to think about your daily life, and we sit down and discuss a topic. So, how are you doing this week, Mr. Carl?
It's been a pretty slow week, and I like that. Just kicking back, nothing major going on, and I wish I had more weeks like this.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of my week. I worked 3 10-hour days in a row, and then I worked an 18, and then I worked a 6. So that was fun. I ended up having to stay at the location for 36 hours. So
Do you is this scheduled for you, or stuff comes up and you end up staying?
It honestly depends. Like this week they intended to get somebody else to cover the back half of my 18. But the guy that they requested, his boss said that he needed him. And then it just became a bit of a crapshoot, I'd say.
You have to be real flexible.
I have to be somewhat, well, particularly on heavy show weeks, I have to be flexible. Like this was a heavy show week. I have to be flexible. Like next week is slow, and the week after is slow, and then I probably
Do you wanna explain what you do?
Explain what I do? Well, I'm in event management, so I operate by coordinating and operating a hotels, conventions, and events and exhibitions. So, I mean, there's a wide gamut of what I do. Most of what I do is audio and video related. So, things like projection and microphones and it's a live setting, not recording setting. I'm not as well versed in the recording setting, as you can tell by the podcast.
No, not at all.
But it's very gig life. They call it gig life oriented, which is there's a lot of long days, a lot of work days. There's a lot of hurry up and wait days. You expand the gamut from anywhere. Like there was one week I worked 80 hours, but I only actually did anything for about 20 of those 80 hours. The rest of it was just making sure that things were going smooth. It seems like, oh, it's a cool job. You work 80 hours, you're actually only working 20 and you're getting paid for 80. But no, it's a tax on your mind to make sure that everything is smooth. Because if you constantly have problems with your productions, then the clients that you have are not going to go back to you. So for me, this week, this is a client that we've had before, but it was just a matter of making sure that everything that they had asked for was on the show, and that everything that was on the show that was working stayed working. And we had to turn a big room twice. So it was where we take this giant big ballroom and it splits up into 3 pieces. And so I had to make sure that everything in the ballroom worked together, and then it also worked separately. So, I mean, I was tasked with making sure that turn was easy to do, and also making sure that the dinners went smoothly. Because they had everything everywhere at this location that we were working at, and I can't divulge who the client was, and because of NDA reasons. But it's a taxing job it's a taxing job on your body and on your family. There's a very high divorce rate in my line of work. Not with the uh not with the convention side, which is what more of what I work, but more so with the touring side, because there are conventions where they want you to tour. Like I know a guy that I work with. He just recently stopped doing the touring stuff, and his wife is much happier. And I never thought he would stop doing the touring stuff. And his wife, he stopped. He took a position at one of our offices to stop doing the touring so that he could go home every night. And his wife seems much happier now, compared to what he was doing before.
Yeah,
So
a friend of mine does something similar to what you do. He lives down in Florida, but he goes all over the country, and he stays for months at a time. He like if there's productions going on, this is more like theater type stuff.
yeah,
But he does all the sound and getting all the equipment together, and he has to be there for every show.
uh
So
huh,
he's single, and he was married at one time. So I'm sure it took a toll on his marriage.
yeah. It definitely takes a toll on Mrs. Lotus, because Mrs. Lotus Mrs. Lotus likes consistency. She's the type of person that she won't profess consistency too often to me, which sounds like a negative, but that's just the type of person she is. Even though she doesn't say that she wants consistency, I know that she wants consistency. She wants to be able to count on me being home at a certain time every night. And with my job and in the recent promotion that I just got, I can't guarantee that every time. When I'm not doing big shows, then I'm doing small stuff, things like handling day-to-day activities in maybe a hotel or maybe a convention center. It's day-to-day stuff is just minor, like just a small screen and a projector. That's minor day-to-day stuff. I'm interacting with clients constantly. I'm interacting with people I don't know constantly. And which is why I kind of want to do a customer service episode, is because there's multiple sides to customer service. But today, I mean, time management today I think, is a good topic, because it's very difficult for me to um, set aside the time to make sure that I'm spending time with Mrs. Lotus, and that my attention is not devoted to something else. And because you have to have that balance. And I don't have kids yet, but I mean, dogs still require my attention. The dogs still require my attention because I'm gone and they want to see me. And so, like, I was gone.
Are you sure of that?
Pretty sure of that. Uh, uh, but I was gone from this week. I left my house at 5:15 in the morning, and I didn't come back until till 1 o'clock the next day. And my boss had got me a room at a hotel close by, and just because he wanted me to be within a 15-minute commute, because he knew that I was going to be working an 18-hour shift. And so because what was going to happen is that I was supposed to work until 10. It ended up being like 11:30. And so I had to be back in the room for sound check the next day at 6 a.m. because they were going to get started with their second general session at 7:15. So it's kind of funny, because I walked in and the client goes, "Did you go home?" I said, "No, ma'am." And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry." you know, and she gave me a really big ass tip this week, which was kind of nice. But
So
because
you get tips?
I get tips occasionally. It depends on the show, it depends on the quality of the show, and it depends on whether the clients
And your company's okay with you receiving tips?
the current company is. The last company was not. The last company, we could still receive tips, but we had to say no. But this company, they don't care. They seem that there's nothing in
Do you have to report
there's
it?
nothing
Do you
in
have to
the
report it though, so they can file it on your taxes?
no. But there's not, because most of the tips that we get are in cash. Um and this company, it's not in the employee handbook that we can't accept tips, but it's also in the employee handbook that you can't do anything to benefit a particular client in a certain way that makes them seem like they're receiving more benefits than another client. Like that contingency. So, like, I can't I
But
can't, because I've received a tip, I can't go out and discount it by 50%. You know what I mean?
okay,
To get that tip.
whether you get a tip or not, um, do you feel like you do more for some clients than others because they're
No,
nicer to work with?
no. The clients, no. I treat all my clients the same way, because if you sign on with me, if you spent $100 or if you spent $10,000 or $100,000, I'm going to treat you the same way, because that's what you deserve. You're a client. You deserve customer service, and I I fully expect that anytime I buy a piece of equipment from somebody, I expect it to work and work in its proper function. And I would hope that somebody would expect the same thing of me.
Well, that's just commonality. Of course,
But
if you
that's
spend
not. But
money,
but that's not okay. But that's commonality. But that's not the attitude that I of everybody that I work with. I've worked with.
so
Because
some
like,
people think if it doesn't work, it's okay.
no, not the commonality if it doesn't work, but the commonality of you paying for an item to work and not spending your as much attention with the people that have spent $100 versus
Well, you
$100,000.
hope those $100 clients become $100,000 clients down
Right,
the
and
road.
that's the idea. That's why I treat them so well. Is because you pay $100, but you're getting $100,000 worth of class
Right, and
service.
if you put $100 with another company, they're probably not going to get the level that you're giving a $100,000 client
Right,
to
right,
them.
right. And so, like, I had a coworker that I worked for before. I spent, because the last company I worked for, they were very much focused on uh getting the right survey scores. Like, you would get survey scores on the clients that you worked for. So the goal was to get a 10, constantly get a 10. Well, this client had a lot of problems, and so, like, my coworker was trying to pull me off of it because they hadn't spent a whole lot with us, and he wanted me to do something else. And I said, no, I'm gonna finish this up, because they deserve my attention and they deserve to get their stuff working. And it wasn't our equipment that they were using. It was, well, I mean, it was our equipment that they were using, but it wasn't our equipment they were using to get their information up on the screen. So I was helping them figure it out, and they ended up giving me a 10. Made me a mention and all this stuff. And that, to me, that's what
Well,
mattered.
yeah, I mean, you're working on somebody else's equipment, and you're still trying to help them.
Right.
They should appreciate that.
Right. And they did. And they did. They mentioned me. They gave me a 10. They, like, everything that I had set out to do, I had done. And I went back to him. I was like, look, I got this score. He's like, oh, well, they didn't spend a whole lot. It's like, but it still matters. They still matter.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all, again, that's a whole customer service thing. But
Well, like, let's go back to your time management thing. So you were saying earlier that you got paid for 80 hours, but you only worked 20. Well, what? And you're basically there to oversee the other 60 hours. You're oversee everything.
right.
So you are working.
Yeah.
Is there other things you could have worked into that time management besides just that?
Well, I mean, now in my current position now, I fill the time by working on other projects that are coming up. So, if it's a show that's it's called a floating show. So you set it, it's almost set and forget, but it's set, make sure it works, and then you can basically just be in the area, and then you're waiting for something to go wrong. And if you've done your job, if you've inspected everything, if you've done the QA, and if you've set everything right, and you've worked it, if there's a bunch of microphones all over the place and you've coordinated all the frequencies so that none of the frequencies interfere, then you're not going to have a problem. The only thing you're doing all day is swapping out batteries for the wireless microphones.
Or something could
So,
stop working, which you have no control
or so, yeah, something could stop
over.
working.
Because that's the beauty of something that's
Well, and
mechanical.
like,
Well, it's
going
not
into
really the beauty, but it's the fact that you can do everything right, but the machine has to cooperate.
right, right, and that's the problem. Like, that's what, like, we go into our technology episode, when we did our technology episode, that was one of the things I wanted to kind of emphasize, is that technology has an expiration date, you know, and even with they're finding out now, even with these flash drives that are in these solid state digital drives that are in computers. I mean, they have their own expiration date, even though there's no moving parts. Everything's got some sort of expiration date on it, and it's just the way.
Except Twinkies.
Except Twinkies. and cockroaches.
I'm not gonna eat those.
but but with with my line of work, the job requires a lot of attention to detail, and if you don't have that attention to detail with how you treat your clients or how you do your setups or something like that, if you're not dressed to impress, as my boss likes to say, if you're not dressed to impress, then you're not going to impress. And so that's how I operate.
That's not your line of work then. If you're not gonna take that attention,
yeah. If you're not going to take that attention, then you're going to lose the client.
so you need to do something else for a living,
right? Yeah. If you're not going to take the attention, yeah, you're going to have to do something else.
Okay.
But,
Well, getting to your balance in it.
yeah. So the balance. I mean, like I spend, during the downtimes, they call them downtimes during the floating shows. During the downtimes, I mean,
I was gonna say, is that something you do?
I call Mrs. Lotus all the time, and I try and check up, see how she's doing. Sometimes if there's a rather long break, then I'll FaceTime with her. The other thing, particularly if I'm on the road, because there are some occasions. Most of the time, I'm not on the road. I'd say I'm only on the road about maybe 1.5 weeks out of the year. That's not very much time.
Oh.
But it's still a lot of time away for her. In her mind, it's still time away from me.
Yeah, you got to remember
Away
though,
from
she's
her.
coming from a structured work environment, and you're not.
Right.
So
Right.
all her mind is, well, I go in at these certain hours of the day, and then I work that certain hours of the day, and then I come home. And I know she knows what you do for a living, but she's not really probably accepting it like she should.
Because a lot of people that haven't worked in the industry, and even people like to tell me, people that have worked in restaurants and stuff, they try and tell me that, oh, it's a similar thing. No, it's not. Because restaurants, I mean, you come in at noon, you get ready for dinner, and then you have the dinner shift, then you pack up, go home after the dinner shift's over. Whereas mine, I might have something. I might have to work a club after the dinner shift.
I think a better analogy would be like a first responder.
First responder.
Yeah, because
first responders,
they might have a set schedule, but if a major accident happens, or God forbid there's a mass shooting or anything like that, they're not going to be able to just punch a clock and go home.
Right, and first responders and cops, policemen,
fire department.
I mean, policemen, they're never really off duty.
No, that's true. They're on 24/7.
If they see something that they think they can do something about, they're going to do something about it.
Right.
It's in their instinct, and they train them to do something.
And they want them on duty 24/7.
Right, and I mean,
they're not getting paid for it, but they still need to do their job when it happens. And I'm sure they're not going to punch in a clock and say, "Well, I worked this many hours making this arrest on my off time." I don't know how that all works.
I don't know how all that works either. But I'm more talking like if they see.
But they're still going to do it whether they get paid or not.
Yeah, I mean, if they see an abandoned, if they see like an abandoned child or something like that, like they're not going to just walk away from that. I mean, most anybody's not going to walk from.
I would say a normal person wouldn't walk away from that.
But I mean, it's like. First responders would probably be the close equivalent of the hours. I mean, I'm not under the duress.
I think the restaurant situation where they said, "Oh, it's similar." I think what happens is and I've been in this situation. You have your set hours, but then something comes up where, oh, we just got a call that we've got somebody's coming into the restaurant. And they got 50 guests that we weren't planning for. Can you stay and help?
Yeah,
and see,
I could see that.
That's where that person's coming from.
They're probably coming
from
there, yeah.
Let's say one of the ovens goes out in the back or something, and they're trying to get it fixed, so that everybody's scrambling to do what they can to get the food out, even though one of the burners is out. So that person was supposed to go home, but now they can't because they've got to help get this fire put out, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I could see. I mean, there are a lot of equivalencies with the industries. But I mean, there's a lot of people that, particularly the church that I go to, they work a 9-to-5 type job, and they complain.
Well, yes and no. I mean, if you're in the office, it's a 9-to-5 job. But if you're like in the clergy, you're always working.
Well, clergy. I'm not talking about clergy.
You're talking about the office people at
I'm
the
talking
church.
about the office.
Yeah,
the
they got
members.
set hours.
They've got set hours most of the time. I mean, they might be a manager, but they're probably not going to get called. I mean,
The only thing that might happen is if they actually belong to that church, they might get involved, maybe get them more involved, but they're not going to. Their job's done basically at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, clergymen, they have clergymen. They work 9 to 5, 4 days a week, and then they're off 1 day a week. That's not Sunday, and they have to work Sunday. And 1 to 2 days a week, and then they have to work Sunday.
But hopefully they're visiting people in their homes or elderly. Are they going to the hospital for parishioners?
Yeah, I mean they're constantly.
And if you come up with something, let's say like, you go to your minister, say, "Hey, I've got a personal problem. I'd like to talk to you about it." Well, and you tell them, "Well, I can't get here to see you until after 7:00, and it's very important." They're going to probably make time to see you.
Yeah, my pastor's very our pastors, I should say, are very open to depending on it depends on the level of priority that it is. Like if it's significant, if it's like a marital affair, which I'm not saying anything about Miss Lotus and but if it's something like an extramarital affair, then that's going to require more attention and more
right.
It's going to require a higher priority.
Right, where if you ran over a worm in the parking lot, that's not going to...
Yeah, if you feel bad about running over a worm in a parking lot.
They probably will reschedule that.
Yeah, I mean, well, but
they'll probably do it over the phone.
Because I help with Vacation Bible School at my church. Like that's the thing I do with my church every year is because I enjoy working with kids and I enjoy working with I just enjoy the production value of it because that's what I do for a living and that's where I can use my skill set the most because Mrs. Lotus and I don't have a whole lot of money. So in the Christian faith, if you don't have money, you donate your time. And sometimes time for a church setting can be more valuable. And so that's what I do is I donate 2
weeks. And some people do both. They donate money and their time.
Yeah, my parents do both. There's quite a bit of people at our church that do both. I'm not trying to knock anybody at our church.
Yeah, no, I know.
And it like I'm part of the missions team at my church. Like I don't go out and be a missionary, but I work with missionaries. So I'm in contact with them.
What do you think this takes away from your free time then when you're doing this that you should maybe be spending more with your wife? Or if she's doing it with you or doing something similar.
VBS, Vacation Bible School, she does with me because
so that's something you do together.
Yeah, it's something we do together. She'll work in the nursery when that happens.
Yeah.
And then for the missions team, that's something that I can do while I'm at work. Because that's
okay. So you're not taking your free time.
I'm not taking
and doing that, and now you're away from her again.
No, unless the only time I take away free time from Mrs. Lotus and I with the missions team is if I have to do a presentation, and like a big presentation. And some presentation stuff, it's just writing a report that I can write during downtime during a show. Because I still have access to a computer and stuff and internet. But with Mrs. Lotus, it's very difficult to it's very difficult when I have these long work weeks to set aside time to go out and do stuff with her because I'm very tired, and it's like today,
is that something she signed on for when you got married?
I mean, it's something that she was aware of when we got married. I don't know. I mean, it's not like I got a signature from her saying that this is okay, but she was aware of the tax that my particular profession takes on me because when I was working as an intern at a local theater, I was working 50 to 80 hours a week, and I was being paid like below minimum wage. Like, I mean,
you're lucky you got anything being an intern.
Yeah, being an intern, I was very lucky. I was very blessed with that. But she knew of the inflexibility that there was with how theater life is, and the reason I got out of theater life is because there wasn't a whole lot of money in it. I mean, there was guys the last theater I worked at before I started working at in the corporate AV world is that there was guys there that had been there 10 years and they were still not officially a part of that theater company. They were still contract. They still didn't have health insurance. They were on contract show to show. So every 3 months they would sign a new contract. They didn't get a raise. They never got a raise. And so it's like I can't sign on for 10 years of this. This isn't, as much as I love this isn't a career path. This is we do this because we love it. And like while I'm willing to do a job because I love it, at the same time, if there's no growth, then there's no point in me being there. And with the companies that I'm at now, there's a lot of growth. I'm above in my profession now where I'm at. I'm above and beyond where I would have been if I had just stuck with. I'm well beyond where I would have been just if I was stuck with theater.
But no, I understand it, and you're right. You want to be somewhere where there's potential for growth. Let's go to a little bit in the future. So suppose you start having kids. Okay. Yeah. Now you have to balance not only your wife but the family. But from what I'm hearing, you're very career orientated.
Oh yeah, I'm a workaholic.
Okay.
I'm definitely a workaholic.
So and you. There's two sides of this. One, you could excel at your job and getting promoted and spending more time with your job, or maybe it's like, if I get a promotion, great, but I'd rather kick back a little bit or slow down a little bit because now I have kids.
Yeah.
And it's like, who comes first? The job where you're making money and supporting your family better, or making the time for your kids, but the higher up you go, the more you're going to do.
Yeah, so you're talking in terms of priorities, right?
Like, right, but it's still time management. Are you going to have time for them and your job? Because the job's taking up so much time. Where's your family fit in?
Yeah. So in terms of priorities, I mean, Mrs. Lotus is always going to come first. And so I've had jobs. I've had days where I've just left a shift because she's in distress, and I had a boss that got mad about that. And he says, you just abandoned your shift. And I said, I don't care.
Your family should always come first.
Like, yeah. I said, I don't care. My wife needs me.
Right.
And if you're going to fire me because of that, then I don't want to work here.
Right. You don't want to work there. And you can always get another job.
And I said,
but your family is your family.
Right. And I said, that's what I told him. I said, I can always get another job. I told him straight up. I said I'm valuable enough that I constantly get calls from you guys. You know, I'm valuable enough to know where I sit in terms of this company. And
you're not holding it over their head.
No, and I'm not holding it over their head either. I said I know how much value I have. I said I know how much value that equates in the rest of the industry in the city in which we live. I said just because I can't work here doesn't mean I can't work somewhere else.
Right.
You know. And so he's like, and he stopped fighting me on that. So every time, and it only happened I think twice since when I worked there, and it's one of those things that like I wasn't working a whole lot of hours. Well, I was working a whole lot of hours, but I wasn't working like constantly 18-hour days. But there was a set of weeks in February where I worked 4 weeks straight with no days off. 28 days in a row. And so the time that I had, when I came home, if Mrs. Lotus was home, then I spent time with her. We would watch Netflix, or we did something, or, you know, cuddle in bed or something like that, you know, which may be a little bit too TMI for our listeners, but but you know, you
can expound on that if you want.
Yeah, but I made the point of saying to my bosses after this 4-week spout was over, I said, this can't happen. This can't happen a lot, because I'm gonna if this happens a lot, I'm gonna lose my wife. You know?
Right.
I said she's upset that I'm gone all the time. And this can't happen all the time because I'm just not interested in. I told him, I said, I'm not trying to give you an ultimatum, but if it comes down between this job and my wife, I'm going to pick my wife every time. And, my goal when we have kids, my goal is to is to make them as much of a priority as I can. And it's interesting because when I was growing up, not my parents did not teach me this, but for some reason my schooling kind of taught me this, is that, oh well, wherever so you spend the most amount of your time is the highest priority you have. And it's like, that doesn't make
Yeah, that's
sense.
kind of odd.
And it that I don't know where that mentality comes from with
Were
people.
you getting this from a teacher?
It's probably a couple of teachers that I got this from, but I was like, I didn't get that, and it took me a little bit to understand that, because when you're a kid, you look up to your teachers, you look up to the adults around you, and so as an adult, it took me a little bit to reorient myself to say, no, my priorities is how much attention I give, not necessarily
Well,
the appropriate attention that I
I think
give.
would have probably been better for your teacher to say is you should be passionate about what you do as far as your job. And if you're not passionate about what you do at your job, you should go to a different job and do something you are passionate about. But I spending more time with your job and then not, and if you don't want it because you enjoy that more than your family,
I
that
don't.
doesn't make any
That
sense.
doesn't wash with it. Doesn't
Yeah.
wash with me now,
But if you
and it
have, but
certainly
if you're
didn't
really
quite
passionate
wash with me
about what
then.
you do, then do what you do. But if you're not, if you're unhappy, then you should need to find that passion and go for that if you
Well, but
can.
I don't know that I agree with that, because there's the micro approach where you can be passionate about your family, and there are things
I'm
that.
not even talking about family. I'm just talking about your job and what you do.
Right, I understand, but you don't have to be passionate about your job to be passionate about your family, because if your job is productive for you, and it leads to a good family life, then your job may not be the thing that you absolutely want to do, but if it's something that's tolerable that you can get through your day with, then it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I've often, not often, but on the long days, on the very long weeks, I often consider if I made the right. There is a certain amount of doubt of whether I've made the right career choice, because it's very taxing to be married and to try and balance these long work weeks.
Well, you want to know what I did when I was married and had kids?
What's that?
Okay. Well, first off, one of us had to take the priority with the kids. Okay.
Right.
So in the early part of the marriage, my wife had our kids, but she stayed home and did daycare so she could be with the kids. And then when they got a little older and could start school, she started getting a career. And so that was her passion. Her work was everything to her. Okay, so that everything she did with her job took priority. So you can't have both people wrapped up in their jobs and you've got two kids at home. So I became the person that, okay, if I move up, great. And I did, but I didn't like push it because one of us had to be home for the kids. So we tried to work it out so that when they were younger, she worked nights and I worked days. And then one of the parents was always with the kids and that. But my wife and my kids will tell you this. She was career driven. Everything was about her career. And when she would come home at night, I heard everything about her job all night long. The minute she walked in the door, she was talking about work. And I used to joke that she probably doesn't even know what I do for a living because I never talked about it because it was all on her. And that's okay. I mean, I can't complain. She made good money and I made decent money. So, and I carried the benefits for us. But the thing was, I set that priority that my job is important, but my family's more important. And I'm going to be the one that has to make the time because you can't have two career driven people and have kids. You can be that way, but your kids suffer. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
they do.
that's true. Well, there's no if there's like with my cousin and his dad, he would be gone for 3 to 4 months at a time. But Uncle Thesian, Uncle Thesian be gone for 3 or 4 months at a time, and I'm sure that was a big tax. I mean, my aunt would be home with all the time. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she homeschooled them up until they were seventh grade, I think, seventh, eighth grade, and then they went to a private school that was like 2 hours away or something. And so, I mean, it was an hour and a half away, and then not that that makes much of a difference, but I mean, he made quite a bit of money. I mean, made quite a bit of money when he was working, and so I mean, they worked it out, and there was a balance there. But I don't know, there was a bit of a balance there because he'd be gone for 3 or 4 months at a time, and then he'd be home for a month, and and you know.
What would you do if your wife decided that her career was important enough that it was more important than your career? And the kids are, and you have kids.
So that's a discussion between me and Mrs. Lotus. And
I mean, would you support her pursuing her career?
If she wanted to pursue a career in the healthcare services, or if she wanted to pursue a career in finance or something, or anything really, anything that she wanted to do, yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, I think she should pursue a career now because kids are becoming a difficulty, and I think she needs something to do with her time.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because she's going to be at a point where she's going to have more time on her hands, and then it's going to be maybe more critical for you to spend more time balancing your job with her, because she's going to be sitting around, and then she's going to want you around. She's going to want to talk to you, and you don't know what your schedule is going to be like from one week to the next.
Right. I encourage her to have a job and have a profession, and for me, even if we were to have kids, and she was to make 3 times what I would be making right now, and I quit my job to stay at home and take care of the kids, I have no problem doing with that.
Right, you have to go with a spouse that makes the more money.
Right,
that's a given.
Yeah, and I would not be insulted if she made more money than me now.
My wife did. My wife made more money than I did.
I mean, I would not be insulted at all.
Yeah.
If she made more money than I did.
Hey, it's more money in the pool. That's how I always looked at it.
Yeah, it's more money on video games. But if I had to stay home with the kids and stuff like that, I would still want something to be able to get away.
Now the roles are reversed though. If she's working, if she's career oriented and she's making the money, then you're going to want her to balance some time for you and the kids.
Right. Yeah. And
so you're going to be on the other side of that.
Yeah, I'd be on the other side of it. But I think for me, I think I understand the value. Not that she doesn't understand the value, but I think I understand it a little bit more. The value of her needing to go and do something like that,
right,
and having a balance. And as Mama Bear addressed last week, there's don't dump your laundry on top of the person coming home.
Right.
It's the chaos of coming home. She would want to come home and relax, and I'd have dinner prepared for her.
Right, right.
I do that for her now. There's weeks where I beat her home, and if she's working long hours, because there are some weeks that she does work more than I do, and so if there are weeks that she's working long hours, then I do what I can for her. I try and have the laundry done. I try and have the dishes done. I try and have dinner ready for her when she gets home so she can eat, because I know she's going to be hungry.
Right.
I try and have her shows on Netflix or Hulu queued up, ready to go.
And she might come home and start talking about her job. And she might not even ask about the kids. She might just start talking about her job.
I mean, she does that already. And I don't mind. I don't mind her talking about her job. And guys, it's funny because when she asks me directly about my job, she'll like, how's work? And I'll be like, fine.
And then she goes on about her job.
She might go on about her job, but she kind of sits there with a pregnant pause for a little bit, and it's like she's like waiting for me to expand on it. And
I didn't even get that.
Yeah, she's waiting for me to expand on it. But sometimes I think she's starting to figure out now that if she asks me specific questions, then I start going into more detail.
Well, see, like with us, I would say something once in a while, not very often, but once in a while I'd say something to my wife and say, You want to hear about my day at work? It goes because you're always talking about how everything going on here. I know everybody that works there. I know everything that's going on, and I don't even work there. And I'm not complaining about that. Okay, I let her rant and rave and vent and all that good stuff. Because that's usually what she did, because it wasn't like a smooth day every day, or there would be anything to talk about.
Yeah.
So I told her, I said, "Do you know what I do for a living?" Just as a joke. And and then she always said, "Well, I figured you'd tell me if something was going on at work." And I said, "When would I have time to do that? Because the minute you hit the door, you're talking about work."
Yeah, it was really cool on Wednesday night. And there was I could tell that she had a bit of a shift in attitude towards my job, because we had a big we had a rather large dispute over my job. And she cuz I would come home at the end of a 18-hour day or something like that, and she go, "Well, it's not my fault." And it's like, I'm aware that it's not your fault, you know.
She just brought that up out of the blue.
Well, no, because I said I'm at the end of an 18-hour day, and I'd like to relax, you know. I'd like to just sit home and not worry about anything, you know. And she says, "Well, it's not my fault you worked 18 hours." And it's like,
Well,
but let me finish.
okay.
But she said she would say that, and I think that, and when we had, it wasn't it, she didn't say that during the dispute. She would say that about other instances where I work long days. And so during the dispute, we hashed it out, and I said, why, because I addressed that directly. I said, "Why do you say it's not my fault?" And she says, "Well, it seems like you're accusing me that I'm making you work these long hours." And I said, "No, I'm not." You
Oh,
know,
okay.
and I said, "No, I'm not accusing you of that." I said, "What's going on? All I'm asking for is a little bit of empathy, a little bit of empathy in terms. Is it empathy or sympathy? Sympathy or empathy?
Empathy.
Sympathy,
Yeah.
empathy." But anyway, so I'm just asking for a little bit of empathy in terms of the mindset that's going on here. And so Wednesday night when I came home, I hadn't seen her in 30 some odd hours, and so she was out. She went to work. I came home. She was napping because she has a split shift. So she goes to work. She comes home. She eats a little breakfast. She watches a little TV, and then she naps before she goes back to work. Well, I came home. She was napping. I took care of a couple of things, and then I was so tired. I decided to take a nap as well. She left, and then I got up about 3 o'clock. Did stuff with the dogs. Took care of a couple of chores, and then um I get a text from her. She says, "What do you?" She says, "I want to do what you want to do tonight for dinner." So she went out. She rented a movie I wanted to see. She rented the dinner I wanted to eat, and she got all the she basically asked me out on a small dinner date at home. You know, and that was really nice.
Yeah, yeah, that is nice.
I really, really appreciated it,
Yeah,
and
that's nice.
that meant more to me than the tip that I got from the client. You know, and
Well,
it
that's nice
should.
to come home to.
Yeah, and it was really. I think that she and I are at this point in our marriage. She and I are starting to iron out little details about
Oh,
each other that are very difficult to iron out early on in your marriage.
right.
You know.
But let's get back to what you said earlier. Um, so when you came home, you said you wanted to relax and, you know, basically vegetate, take it
Yeah.
easy. Okay. And she said it wasn't her fault. Why did you say that at all?
Because
Because
there
in the
was
past, she said something to you that make you to
because no, no, no,
say
no.
something?
It's because that when I came home, she wanted me to do the chore. She had been sitting at home. She'd
Right.
been off that day, and so she wanted me to do the chores that
Okay,
she
so
could
that's
have
what.
done
Okay, so that's really more of
during
the
the.
story, because why you
Yeah,
said that. Because I would think that if you came home and didn't say anything and you just started to relax, everything might have been fine. But maybe because you said that, that triggered something in her. And again,
no,
you weren't blaming her,
I
but in
wasn't.
her mind, she was thinking that.
Yeah.
But now you're telling me that she was hitting you with all this stuff when you walked in the door.
Yes.
Okay, well
Yeah,
that's a difference.
it was like my mom was saying last week. It's she jumped some laundry on top of me, and I just wasn't interested. I just
I
wasn't interested.
understand.
So I just moved the laundry over to the side, and then I was like, no, I don't want. I'll do that later. Even though she wanted it done
Yeah.
right away, and it's like I understand, but I'm coming off a long day,
Well,
and
sure.
so
And then same thing used to happen to me when I'd come home because my wife would go to work and early when our kids were littler, but they were old enough that they could stay by themselves for an hour or two if there was a difference in our time.
uh-huh.
So I would come home and they'd start dumping on me the minute I walked in the door, or they want me to take them somewhere, or I had to
Yeah,
do something for them. And it's like, look, I just walked in the door,
yeah,
and now you want to, and I just drove. I had a 31.5 mile commute every day each way.
uh-huh.
So I said, I'm tired. I just want to sit down. And the minute I walk in the door, you guys are hitting me with doing something. Or it's like, give me some time to digest everything. And then we'll talk about if you want to go somewhere.
Yeah,
But don't hit me with all this stuff the minute I walk in the door. And it wasn't my wife doing it. It was my kids.
right. Well, and I like I'm taking her to a movie and some dinner tonight, and I reciprocate. And so I try and do my best that when I have days off, I make sure that because like yesterday I only had to work in the morning. I only worked for an hour and a half yesterday, and I had to get. But I had other chores that I needed to get done. I had to get an X-ray done because I have an appointment later today. I had to get what did I have to do? I had to get stuff expedited for the work, ready to go for the next show. I had to get stuff out of the air. There was a bunch of things that I had to get done that day, and I got them all done. And I was done by 2 o'clock. And so I beat the buzzer home, and I got home with lunch, ready to go, ready to eat for her before she left for work, and she appreciated that. And I try and go out of my way. I try. The emphasis is on try. I'm not always successful, but I try to go out of my way to make sure that she is taken care of, even when I'm not home. You know, and like there's been days where she's had to work a bunch, and then I've had to work a bunch, and like Sundays she actually works. I hardly work on Sundays, so or I work less on Sundays than she does, and so uh the last Sunday I worked, and I worked a rather large shift on that Sunday, and she had to work as well. So I beat her home, and I took the dogs out. I made sure that they had plenty of exercise. They were tired when she got home, so that the only real interaction she had with them is that they were excited to see her when she got home, and then they were just exhausted because I had taken them out. And then I had roses because she was having a bad day, so I had roses and I had chocolates waiting for her. When she got home, so that she walked in on the table, boom, roses. She saw them, she was appreciative, and stuff like that. So it's little things. I know that sometimes these are band-aids.
Yeah, but
They can
also,
appear to be band-aids.
yeah, but it also,
to me, they can appear to be band-aids.
it spreads some goodwill though, and it gives you some credits in the future because
Yeah.
you'll look back on that and say, "Oh, we brought me chocolates and flowers home." So if something you do may make her mad, then she might trigger that action and say, "Oh, but he did bring me flowers and chocolates." So
Yeah, I mean, she told me
there's nothing wrong
most of
with
the time,
there's nothing wrong with treating that as something forward rather than putting a band-aid on it.
right, and I mean, in my mind, sometimes it seems like a band-aid, but in her mind, what
Well,
should
it
matter is
depends
her
on what
mind.
caused you to do it. Was it something you think you had to put a band-aid on, or was it you just felt like doing it?
I mean, I I don't no man likes to see his wife in pain.
No.
And for her to tell me she's in pain and she's having a bad day, you want to do something about it. So I had roses and chocolates wait for her. So it's like it's I mean it's difficult to try and put into man, I lost my train of thought.
Well,
But I mean, it's difficult to try and put into words on what exactly I'm looking to do, and my end goal is not. My end goal is to make sure that she's happy.
yeah.
You know.
One thing, balancing your work and your home life. Obviously, you have a job that a lot of times you don't have control over everything that's going on with it, and you have to be there. So the times that you're not there and you're with your wife, you need to find a comfort zone or something there that when you are off, everything's cool, and when you're not there, it's like you you have to have something in place so that she's comfortable with you being away. So that when you do have that balance of time and free time, that oh, it's okay that he's working, or it's okay he's got this, because I know when he's home, we're gonna do all this other stuff.
Yeah, and
Something for her to look forward to.
yeah, and often I try and do that. Like we do
Like you're going to a movie tonight.
yeah, we're going to a movie tonight.
Yeah.
But when Hell's Kitchen is on, we, like Friday nights, that's our night. We sit together, sit down, watch Hell's Kitchen. That's our thing. And like she really enjoys that. She really looks forward to that, and I really look forward to that. And there are things that I like to do. I don't know what I was gonna say. But no, there are things I try and do things to set aside time for her so that she has something to look forward to. And I thought that was also the purpose of us getting dogs as well, is so that she had something that she could feel protected by.
And does she?
Yeah, she does. Her mood and her overall attitude is much improved versus when we didn't have dogs versus when we do have dogs. Because when we didn't have dogs, it's like it was constant texts of the same thing over and over and over again. And not that I don't mind that, it's just at the same time, it seems like there's something mentally wrong. There's something else that's wrong than just what's on the surface of the text. And so But with the dogs, I try to make it so that she had something to do with her time, even when I wasn't there. And so the dogs want to play. They want to go on walks. They want to do this. They want to do that.
So is she doing all that stuff?
Oh yeah, she does all that stuff with them. And so she gets out more, and that's part of our problem.
And you got a fish too.
And we have fish. Yes.
So she has to take care of the fish.
Yeah, she has to take care of the fish. But that's part of our problem as in general as my wife and I are, because I'm not a very a lot of people in my profession are very club-oriented people. They want to go out and they want to party and they want to do that. I'm not. I've never been that way. I'm not that way.
Are these guys single or married?
Most of them are single. Most of the guys in my profession are single.
Yeah, well, that's a different culture.
Right, but even when I was single, I didn't.
Still
didn't do stuff like that.
But you grew up in a household that was sober. There wasn't any drinking.
A dry household.
Yeah, dry household, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you think that was instilled into you as? I mean, I know you drink, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, I drink now. I drink.
Hey, but you think you drink less in more in moderation because of the household you grew up in? I mean, was it something? Let me ask you this: when did you hit that epiphany where I'm going to try an alcoholic beverage?
Well, no, that was. I mean, trying alcohol was the first time I tried to go out and party.
Okay.
And I tried to go out and party with friends because in college is very much party atmosphere.
Sure. And there's going to be drinking.
Particularly in the theater industry where you've got people that's all they want to do is just party.
Right.
And so.
But then you start getting older and you slow down. Even when you're single, you'll start slowing down.
But like I said, I tried to go out and party, and I just didn't like it. I just didn't like it. And so I only ever went to, I think I only went to 3 parties the entire time I was in college. I was in college for 3.5 years. I mean, I only
went to 3 sucky parties, though.
I went to, well, the first party I went to, I mean, I got pretty,
hammered?
I got pretty hammered, and I woke up with a hangover the next day, and I had fun, but it was like, this isn't fulfilling, and so, I mean, my goals at that point, I mean, I was clearly oriented to try and get married, like,
yeah.
I just, my priorities were just set differently than a lot of my peers.
Do you feel like when you drink, you have, your demeanor changes?
No. I'm not,
because I know people that demeanor do change.
No,
when they drink.
if I get drunk, I'm a happy drunk.
Yeah,
I know that. Yeah. Mrs. Lotus is the same way. Mrs. Lotus is a very happy drunk.
Right.
She's a giggly drunk. which is funny. But no, I don't ever drink to the intention of getting hammered or wasted or drunk or whatever. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the social aspects of drinking, and a lot of I mean, there's a brew night that my church has that I try and go to as much as I can. It's just a group. We do it once a month, and a group of guys get together and they enjoy a beer together. And my what really kind of my small group kind of really got me into craft beers and local beers and stuff like that, because whenever I go to the grocery store, I try and get a beer I try and get a case of beer that I like, and then I try and get a case of beer I've never tried before. And most of the time, I'm hitting up a Carbach either way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I like the brewing company. I like Carbach Brewing Company.
Some places, I know they do it at Trader Joe's. They have all those craft beers there, but you can mix and match them.
Yeah.
That way you get to try a lot of them without buying a whole case.
Yeah, Kroger does the same thing, but it's really expensive. Like, it's more than Trader Joe's.
Yeah, but you don't want to get stuck with a whole case of beer you don't like.
True, but I mean, I finish it because it's beer.
That's a good attitude.
I mean, like, it's beer. But I mean, it might sit in the fridge for a while, but it's one of those things that and like Amy.
Do you make time for that when you manage your time? Do you make time to have a beer?
It depends on the day.
What's that?
It depends on the day.
Oh, okay. Do you feel like you need a beer more than some days? Or you want to have a beer more than
some days I want to have a beer.
Maybe you don't need it, but
I don't need it.
You're right.
I don't ever need it.
No, but sometimes you want one because it's
going
to make
like
it...
I've had I really hope that I don't get kicked with an NDA for this, but I've actually had a beer with my boss on the job before. Like the top guy in our company.
Right.
He came out and he and I went to.
Well, he can do that.
He and I went to well, he can do that. Yeah,
he's got the priority. If you're with him, it's okay.
Yeah, and so it was funny because he and I went to a location for a week, and then it was the final day, and he's like, let's just have a beer. So he and I had a beer. We came back. We did the rest of the day. We closed out the day, and I was like, man, I feel pretty good doing this at the end of the day. It's like,
yeah.
But it was just funny to me.
It's always good when you have a beer with your boss because then they think a lot of you.
Yeah,
they're not going to have a beer with an employee that they don't like.
Yeah, and I think he thinks highly of me.
There you go.
I think he thinks highly of me. I don't necessarily think highly of myself because you're your own worst critic. But at the same time, I think, he's a good boss. I mean, he pays close attention to detail, and he's also very pinpoint focused. So he looks, and he doesn't pinpoint focus until he knows he can make it work.
Yeah.
And because he's an acquisitions guy. He works in our acquisitions department, and so he's not going to go after something unless he knows he can try and get it, or he knows he can get it away from his biggest competition. And that's what he's been doing lately.
So his acquisitions are getting clients.
Yes, big clients, big clients,
like clients that might be using another company. He's trying to get their business,
right? Or clients that might be using them as an in-house, if you know what I mean. That's all I can say. But yeah, I mean, he goes after it. A lot of a lot of what we try and do for our clients is say at least give us, what our quality is like, so at least give us a bid. Like that's our attitude. Is I don't want to make it sound more demeaning than it is, because it's not demeaning, but as lowly sales and tech guys, we try and say at least give us a bid on your show, whereas the bigger guys are like, no, we're going to go after the show, and that's fine, and I'm a bit of a soldier in my profession. I do what I'm told, and I try and follow through as best I can. But I make mistakes,
right? And
he recognizes that I make mistakes, which is great for a boss. As a boss is going to recognize, hey, you made a mistake. I'm not going to fire you for it, but now what not to do next time.
Do you have the right mix of Chiefs and Indians?
The right mix of Chiefs and Indians. I almost want to say that there's too many chiefs.
That's pretty common with a lot of companies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small company, so you get more chiefs than you do Indians. And I try and play the Indian as much as I can because I realize that I'm not quite ready to be a chief yet. But I mean, I'm
Well,
in charge of.
do the Chiefs roll up their sleeves and get into the grunt work with the Indians?
Oh yeah, that's why there are so many like that. Is because they're not like like the guy I'm telling you about. He's not afraid to get down and dirty. Like yesterday he was like, where is this going? So he did everything that I told him to. So I was essentially his chief for a brief moment or two, and so he knows that I know the job better than he does, knows the jobs better than he does, but what he does is beyond what I can do right now at this point in my career. And I would love to be able to get to his position because he's able to go home every night about the same time. And he seems to have a good work-life balance.
Well, unless his job is to fill in for you if you leave or you're gone, and he doesn't know everything about your job.
Well, but I mean,
no, but that's not his job.
That's not his job.
His job is this other thing.
But his job is to go out. His job is to go out and get acquisitions and to find people like me. That's his job.
Yeah, I mean, if he was supposed to fill in for you, he'd have to know everything about your job. And yes, but
well,
that's not his job.
But I don't train him to do my job. I train the person. I train the other guys. I train the other guys that I work with one-on-one all the time to do my job.
Right.
Because, and he's like, I said, I'm going to do this. And he says, I know, you should. And his attitude is, if I can train 10 people to do what I do, then I'm more valuable because I can do that.
Right, because if you hold all the cards, the old adage is knowledge is power, but it's not the way to workforce is.
No.
You've got to empower everybody that works around you so that you can move up and they can do the job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like
if you want to move up and you don't ever train anybody and you have all the power because you have all the knowledge, you're going to be stuck in that job because they need you in that job because nobody else knows how to do anything.
Right. Well, and there's a bunch of people that I know that I used to work with that they said they used to work at a place where they would want to move up, but their boss wouldn't let them move up until they found a replacement for them.
Right.
And so it's like you have to find somebody that's willing to do your job, and you got to train them. And then they can do your job, and then you can move up.
Right.
And so, like, I try and train the people around me to do aspects of my job, and I'm really trying to encourage a guy that's been working in this industry for at least 20 years, but he hasn't moved up in a position. He's happy where he's at, but I'd like to see him grow. But because he's only got so much time left before he's almost forced to retire because when he works long days, when he does all this stuff, it's very taxing on him. It's much more taxing on him because I'm a younger guy. He's not your age, but he's 10, 15 years younger than you, but that's still a lot older than me.
Right.
And so I try to encourage him to get himself into an attitude of where you don't have to do these long, laborious jobs. You can sit in an office and do paperwork, and you can still be fulfilled and accomplished, and still be able to go home every day. And so that's hard for him to get around that concept, because he's done it for so long, and you can't. It's like the scientific studies proved is that it takes 3 days to form a habit, but it takes 21 days to remove the habit. That's how. I mean, you've been doing something for 20 years. That's how it's going to take a long time to reorient yourself.
Right.
So I mean, it's not and he's got an okay work-life balance, and I've made it a point with the people I work for. I said you guys, I need to understand that Mrs. Lotus and I do have a priority here. That Mrs. Lotus comes first, and my boss and the guy I was telling you about, he's understood that. He's understood that very well. Every time I work above and beyond now, beyond what has been scheduled, beyond what I'm supposed to do, he calls me up. He says, "I'm sorry that we have to work you this much."
Sometimes she joins you, doesn't she?
It depends. She like the Tuesday night when my boss booked me a hotel, she could have easily joined me there. but it just didn't work because she would have had to leave.
Work the next morning.
Well, she had to. Yeah, she had to work the next morning. She would have to leave really early. She would have had to leave earlier than I.
If your wife is staying with you though, and you're working, is that a distraction?
I mean, if she was to be working side by side with me, it wouldn't be much of a distraction. But I don't think that she could. She would like. I don't think she would very much like the idea of me telling her what to do. You know, I'm not.
Or if you're in a different city, she could go exploring or something.
Yeah, I mean, that week where I was gone, she could have easily come with, but she had to work.
Right.
And so it's one of those things. Like if she doesn't have to work, then she comes along.
But like this summer.
This summer, if she doesn't have, because I mean, she's having a shift in job stuff. So I mean, if she doesn't find something for the summer, then she'll probably come along. I know that there's some opportunities in the East Coast for me to go over there and do some
will your company pay for her to be with her or with you?
My company will pay for the hotel room for her to be in.
Okay.
But they won't pay for her
to travel there.
Travel, but we have because of my dad's profession, we have access to
my wife's company. Occasionally, since they were having her travel quite a bit, would pay for me to go with her on a vacation. Or not a vacation. It's a vacation for me, but she's working. Yeah, they would pay for me to go with her.
It depends on how long it is, and it depends on where it is. If it's enough notice to where they could be like, okay, well, bring her along, then they might do something like that. But
and then the thing about that is, if the company's smart, they want you happy. If you're going to be gone a long time, and if it means having your spouse there, they'd rather have a happy employee than a grumpy employee.
Right. Well, in the last company I worked for, the traveling portion of the company, the touring portion of the company, asked me directly if I was interested in touring, and I said only if my wife could come with me. And they said, well, what's her skill set? And I told them, and they said, okay, well, we'll consider it.
They wanted her to do something.
They wanted her to do. They just didn't want her to
just be there.
And I said, and so they wanted her to do something. And I said, that doesn't mean you can't pay her. Like you could pay her minimum wage, she'd be okay. And she'd have something.
So they were trying to get her on the payroll.
Yeah, they were trying to get her on the payroll. But I mean, I never got a follow up interview or phone call from them about it because it became a bit of a nightmare to work for them when they were in town. When the touring division of the last company I worked for was in town, it was a pain to work for them. It was a big pain.
So it was a blessing that
they didn't do that. But I mean, this was before they asked this before we had dogs and other obligations.
Anything else you want to cover?
Anything else I want? No, not really. I mean, this has mostly been a long form interview of my work life.
Well, I hope I gave you some my experiences.
No, yeah, you did definitely, and I hope that listeners, our listeners, can benefit from the flaws and the lack of experience or lack of not lack of experience, but lack of balance that I'm able to provide.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody. And Steven Crowder highlights this very well. I don't think anybody's perfect in their work-life balance. And I don't think anybody can ever be perfect in their work-life balance because if you spend too much time at home, then your work suffers. If you spend too much time at work, then your home life suffers. And you got to find it. It takes a long time to figure out what that balance is.
That works both ways too. Sometimes you can spend too much time at home, and it's time to go to work.
Yeah, exactly. and that's what I mean. I mean, it takes time. It also takes a lot of time to figure out what exactly the balance needs to be.
Right. If you're home all the time and your wife's saying and you got kids and it's like, okay, you've been home long enough. When do you go back to work?
Yeah, when do you go back to work? Yeah, but I mean, it's funny because my dad got after me about it all the time because I'd ask. It seemed like for him, 5 minutes after he was home, I was like asking, when are you going back to work? And he's like, oh, you want to get rid of me already? And it's like, no, Dad, I just want to know how much time I have with you,
Yeah.
And,
well, at least you didn't say, well, the house ran really smooth when you weren't here.
Should have. It would be funny. But I'm looking forward to this weekend because I have this weekend off. And I'm looking forward to it because I get to go to a movie tonight with Mrs. Lotus, and I get to they're gonna go see the new Avengers movie.
Yeah, that'll be good.
It'll be good. But yeah, I'm looking forward to tonight. I'll probably take her out to dinner when she gets home beforehand because the movie's not till like 9:00, so probably take her to dinner.
Are you gonna have the seat experience where they vibrate and stuff?
We just had the recliners. I didn't buy the vibrating seats. I didn't want to spend. I didn't want Mrs. Lotus to get the wrong idea.
I did notice though when I went to TMI when I went to the Star Wars movie, I didn't get the vibrating seats, but because of the sound system in there, it felt like the seats were vibrating.
Yeah. Some of the sound systems are designed really well. Where we're sitting is not the ideal place for the sound.
I do like the recliners though.
The recliners are very nice.
Very nice.
I'm very happy that theaters have gone the way, and I'm glad that 3D is being phased out.
Really, I like 3D.
I don't much care for it. I really don't. I don't think.
Well, that's another topic we can discuss.
Yeah, I don't see the value of it, but yeah, that is another topic we can discuss. But yeah, so what? It's like 2 weeks until the listener Tyler comes into town.
Yeah,
it's like 2 weeks. So I think we'll probably do another episode for you next week, right? Because you're your turn next week.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, this was a pretty good episode. This has been Lotus with the Socratic Neighbors podcast and
Quick Carl.
And what do you have planned this week?
I'm not sure yet.
Not sure. Yeah, but
stuff comes up. Stuff comes up, and so I do have stuff planned. I have a group that I go to next Thursday, so I have that on my schedule. It's pretty open, but then, like I said, things pop up, and then at least I have the flexibility to deal with them. I'm not tied into a certain schedule.
Yeah, and Azerbaijan Grand Prix Formula One is this weekend, so I'm gonna go to my dad's house. And watch that. I'm
gonna get right on that one.
Go to my parents and watch that.
Well, you enjoy that though. You and your dad are really into that stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. We're really into that. I'm really hoping that he's willing to come on the podcast for Formula One.
We did say no on the last one.
Yeah, he did say no on the last one. I did catch him saying no.
Yeah,
but I thought I thought the last episode was really interesting. And even
I like that when
grandfather
Lotus spoke.
Grandpa Lotus, yeah, when he was talking about stuff was pretty interesting. I actually got a lot of. Thank you to our listeners. I got a lot of good feedback from that episode.
Yeah.
We got a lot.
But I like the way he just jumped in and started talking.
Yeah. We need
to have him on more.
We should do an episode. We should do an episode with him, and just have him do stories. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, we'll just sit back and listen.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. But anyway, if you can find us at Socratic Podcast on Twitter, you can email us at socraticneighbors@gmail.com. This
iTunes.
Yeah, we're on iTunes,
YouTube.
Google Play, YouTube, and
that podcast.
Podomatic.
It's like the Vegematic.
But yeah, I thank you very much for listening. I hope our listeners have a great week. I know this has been kind of a lower key episode than our previous episodes, but I think it was a productive episode. So
yes, definitely.
Next week, Mr. Quick Carl has his topic. He hasn't told me what he wants to talk about yet.
We could talk about those 3D movies.
We'll talk about 3D movies.
I don't know yet.
All right. But yeah,
and then listeners can send in a suggestion.
Yeah, send in a suggestion at socraticneighbors@gmail.com. We're constantly open to new topics and things like that. And if you have a very interesting topic and you have Skype or FaceTime, we may even consider having you on the show.
Yeah.
Joe the Maiden, he's a buddy of mine. That's his name. That's what his name he likes to go by is Joe the Maiden. He is interested in coming on the show. He wants to talk about. There's something he wants to talk about. I forget what he said, but he's interested in coming on the show.
Like earwax analysis or something?
No, it was something relating to podcasting and game audiences. He wanted to talk playing to an audience. Yeah, it was something he wanted to talk about. But he's very busy guy, so I don't know that he'll be on the show anytime.
I know you wanted to You want to talk about gaming at some point?
Gaming and Formula One will probably be when you're on vacation.
Gaming, I played a lot of video games over the years.
Well, and I think
I'm not into it like you are right now.
Well,
but
I think it would be more impact. I'm not saying that you don't have an opinion, but I think it'd be interesting to have one of my buddies that I play with all the time, because I'm also interested in hearing his perspective on. I think he's got a good perspective on where the gaming industry actually is, because I know that you're familiar with gaming, but I don't know if you're familiar with all these developers and what they do and stuff like that.
I buy and sell stock every day. I know what they're doing. and also, I have a lot of historical perspective on video games.
That's true. That's true too. We maybe we'll just Skype him in on the episode. We'll do it that way. But anyway. I hope our listeners like I said before, I hope our listeners have a great week, and I hope you have a great week, Mr. Carl.
Yeah,
and let me know when you'd like to record, and we'll do another episode.
Okay, sounds good.
See you guys later.